Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And it's been a while that I have not ranted about my favorite books, and I thought, why not today? And I would really appreciate if you would like, subscribe, and comment on my channel and help me grow. So, if you ask me any time of the day, any time of the year, which is my favorite classic, I would say it is The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. So, The Brothers Karamazov is often regarded as Fyodor Dostoevsky's crowning achievement, not simply because it is his last novel, but because it gathers together the questions that haunted Dostoevsky throughout his life, like most of us, I feel, which included faith, suffering, free will, guilt, justice, and the possibility of redemption. So there are many interesting stories that from Dostoevsky's life that actually led to the writing of this book. So by the time Dostoevsky began writing The Brothers Karamazov in 1878, he had lived through experiences that would have broken many of us. Fyodor Dostoevsky was arrested in 1849 for participating in a discussion group that criticized the Russian government. He was sentenced to death, and on the day of the execution, he and the other prisoners were led before a firing squad. And only at the final moment was a message delivered announcing that the execution had been commuted by Nicholas I. So the entire execution had been staged as a psychological punishment. Dostoevsky was instead sent to 4 years of hard laboring in Siberia, followed by compulsory military service. So Petrashevsky circle trial became the defining event of his life. These years transformed Dostoevsky. He emerged with a deeper religious faith, a profound understanding of human suffering, and an enduring fascination with the contradictions of human nature. He has also battled epilepsy, chronic debt, and a lifelong gambling addiction. These struggles shaped the psychological realism that defines his novels. So, there is another unfortunate event from his life that also became a part of this book, The Brothers Karamazov. So, in 1878, Dostoevsky's 3-year-old son, Alexei Fyodorovich Dostoevsky, affectionately called Alyosha, died from an epileptic seizure. So the loss devastated Dostoevsky. Soon afterward, he visited Optina Monastery, where he spent time with the revered monk Ambrose of Optina. And that pilgrimage profoundly influenced the spiritual heart of this novel. So the youngest Karamazov brother in this book, that is Alyosha, bears his son's name. And while the fictional Alyosha is not a portrait of the child, many scholars believe that Dostoevsky poured into him the tenderness, hope, and spiritual purity he longed to preserve after his son's death. So, why it feels so different? Unlike many novels, The Brothers Karamazov isn't driven primarily by plot. Yes, there is a murder. Yes, there is a courtroom drama. But beneath the mystery runs something much larger, much deeper. Each brother in this book represents a different response to life's deepest questions. For example, the first brother, that is Dmitry Karamazov, embodies passion, instinct, and sensuality. Ivan Karamazov, the second brother, represents intellect, skepticism, and rebellion against the suffering of innocent people. Alyosha Karamazov, the youngest one, stands for compassion, humility, and faith. Not blind belief, but a faith continually tested by grief. And there is Pavel Smerdakov, who exposes the moral consequences of nihilism and resentment. So, Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov, the father, represents or symbolizes greed, indulgence, and moral decay made flesh. So, together they form less a family than a map of the human soul itself. And this book is incomplete without mentioning the chapter The Grand Inquisitor, which is a book in itself. So, one of the novel's most celebrated chapters it is. It stands as a philosophical work in its own right. In that chapter, Ivan imagines Jesus returning during the Spanish Inquisition, only to be imprisoned by a cardinal who argues that humanity prefers security over freedom. So the chapter wrestles with authority, belief, and the burden of free will. And it has influenced philosophers, theologians, writers, and political thinkers for generations. So, why this book remains timeless? What makes the Brothers Karamazov extraordinary is not that it provides answers. No, it doesn't. Instead, it gives equal dignity to belief and doubt. It refuses to simplify morality into heroes and villains. Every character contains contradictions, and every argument is presented with remarkable intellectual honesty. And perhaps that is why readers like me return to it throughout their lives. At 20, when I read it, it felt like a philosophical novel. At 40, it feels like a family tragedy. Later, it may become a meditation on forgiveness, mortality, and what it means to remain human in the face of suffering. I don't know, just my thinking. So it was Dostoevsky's final completed book. He died in 1881, only a few months after its publication. He had envisioned continuing Alyosha's story in a sequel, but that book was never written. And as a result, the Brothers Karamazov stands as both a conclusion and an unfinished farewell, one last attempt by a writer who had looked directly at death, grief, and despair, and still dared to ask whether love and faith could endure. So, this is a huge book, and if you haven't read it, you must read it. And if you are reading it in your 20s, you may not understand it very well. You have to read it multiple times to understand the underlying meaning of this book, because it is not just a novel. It is a philosophical guidance. It is everything that any philosophical ideologies or any literature can offer you. So read it multiple times, and it's a huge book. Read it at your own pace, read it with intention. Then only you will be able to understand this book, The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. Not just this book, any of Dostoevsky's book. If you have to understand him, you have to read it many times. And at every different stages of life, you will get a different meaning. You will come to a different conclusion about his works. So never miss out reading a Dostoevsky. He is not an easy read, but he is definitely a must read. So, The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky.